Marijuana, anything but toxic. So, given the laundry list of adverse effects associated with a legal drug like alcohol, one would assume that the adverse effects of an illegal drug like marijuana must be far worse, right? Well, not exactly. Alcohol has set the bar far too high for that. In 2004, investigators from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control wrote in the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, that alcohol consumption is the third leading cause of death in America, trailing only tobacco smoking and poor diet. By contrast, following a series of evidentiary hearings in 1988, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's administrative law judge concluded, in strict medical terms, marijuana is far safer than many of the foods we commonly consume. Marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man. Although cannabis is commonly referred to as a mild intoxicant, even by the authors of this book, there is in fact very little toxic about it, particularly when compared to the effects of ethanol. In moderate and even heavy doses, cannabinoids are virtually non-toxic to healthy cells and human organs. Moreover, as we mentioned in Chapter 2, compounds in marijuana actually mimic the body's own neuromodulators, the endocannabinoids, which are essential to maintaining homeostasis, good health, and perhaps even protecting the body from many of adverse health effects associated with old age. This discovery has led some experts to theorize that the use of cannabis may, in some cases, supplement the endocannabinoid system and, in turn, help to moderate certain diseases and maintain optimum health. As noted already, unlike alcohol, ingesting cannabis cannot cause a lethal overdose, nor is its use, even long-term, associated with higher levels of mortality. According to a 1997 study by Kaiser Permanente of over 65,000 people, lifetime marijuana use showed little, if any, effect on non-AIDS mortality in men and total mortality in women. Authors noted that the increased risk of AIDS mortality in men was not because of a causal relationship, but arguably because patients with late-stage HIV/AIDS were more likely to be using cannabis for symptomatic relief than other males in the cohort. A separate study of this population found no association between pot use and increased risks of developing tobacco use-related cancers. In fact, no cases of lung cancer were identified among subjects who used marijuana but did not smoke tobacco. A previous review of cannabis use and mortality risk in a cohort of 45,540 Swedish conscripts reported that marijuana smokers had no higher risk of death compared to non-users after investigators controlled for subjects' social backgrounds. The use of marijuana, contrary to the consumption of alcohol, is not associated with increased incidence of injury. The same University of Missouri investigators who in 2006 reported that drinking alcohol significantly increased one's risk of accident requiring hospitalization also determined that marijuana use was associated with a substantially decreased risk of injury. Additionally, Swiss investigators in 2009 reported that people who consumed cannabis had a lower risk of injury compared to those who consumed no drugs or alcohol. Marijuana use is seldom regarded as a cause of violent behavior, traffic injury, or damage to the brain. Though not advised, the use of marijuana by pregnant mothers appears to have far less impact on the fetus than the use of alcohol, which has been linked to permanent and severe birth defects. Cannabis use among pregnant mothers has been associated with lower birth weight and, in a handful of studies, cognitive differences in young children, though this finding remains controversial and inconclusive. Marijuana use, even over the long term, also fails to induce the sort of physical cravings and withdrawal symptoms associated with booze. At worst, marijuana-associated withdrawal is described by the U.S. National Academy of Sciences as mild and subtle. By contrast, the withdrawal symptoms from alcohol are so physically severe that they can lead to delirium tremens, which may be fatal. But what about the claim that marijuana is more dangerous to the body than alcohol because cannabinoids and their byproducts are fat-soluble and thus exit the fat cells slowly, while alcohol is water-soluble and exits the body more quickly? As noted previously, cannabinoids are surprisingly non-toxic, so their persistence in the body poses no serious threat to health. In fact, it's this slow half-life that likely prevents cannabis users from suffering from substantial abstinence symptoms, example physical withdrawal, when they cease using it. Marijuana's excretion pattern is hardly unique. Plenty of other legal drugs, such as certain prescription steroids, are fat-soluble and have similarly slow elimination times. About the only serious downside of pot's pharmacokinetics is that its metabolites, a type of byproduct, can be detected on certain drug tests, primarily hair tests and urinalysis, for days and sometimes weeks after past use, making cannabis consumers far more susceptible to discrimination in the workplace. By contrast, most other drugs, including booze, cocaine, and methamphetamine, are only detectable on standard drug screens for a period of hours.